Chapter 8 is about managing your athlete's behavior. Anybody had a teammate that's done something they shouldn't have? My latest one, a gentleman on my gymnastics team at Bass. Him and another girl. The girl wasn't on the team. She should have because she had an amazing tumbling pass. But it's probably a good thing because at camp meetings, so once school had ended, technically it was still on school grounds, these two decided to put alcohol in their water bottles instead of water. What would you have done if you had some players in the off season on school grounds with alcohol in a water bottle? I doubt it. If they were doing it on campus, I highly doubt it. But first time they were truly caught. Is what we're doing technically illegal?
Yeah, because it's on school grounds.
And they're underage. So they're high school, so they're not over 21. I took it to the principal and let them deal with it. I was like, this is above my team's scope. My scope as a team is what happens during practice, what happens during the school year, because this was technically after school. I was like, this is closer to a legal problem than a team problem. So, oddly enough, the school didn't kick them out, which just kind of surprised me. They did kick them out of any work that they were doing. Like one was working in like a Sabbath school room. I don't know if you guys know what camp meeting is. It's basically like Sunday school all week long, like vacation Bible school kind of thing. So I mean, they had meetings with young kids all week long. They were working in the senior store with me. So yeah, we ended up, they ended up being just basically given to their parents and said, you have to supervise them now. And we are not responsible for them. I don't know if that was really the best punishment, mostly because I don't think the parents did anything. Because I know if my parents caught me like that, it would not have been a happy ending. We would have been leaving camp meeting because they know I like to hang out with people. So, what do you do when you manage your players' behaviors? And there's all the things we're going to go over there. All those things are what you need to know before you get into your quiz. All right, so scenario 1. During a wrestling practice, one of your wrestlers easily pins another wrestler. Bob is embarrassed about how easily Mike was able to pin him. Bob is mad at himself and starts to take out his frustration on Mike. He taunts Mike, pushes him in the chest. Mike backs away and says, hey man, no hard feelings, you pinned me plenty of times. Bob keeps coming at him, but Mike backs away and doesn't engage in the fight. Talk with a person next to you about these 3 things. And then it's just repeated on the right. I twisted you on the top there. We're not talking about the negative thing here. We're trying to go on the positive one. All right, guys in the corner there. What behavior here should be rewarded, if any? Which one? Oh, he said go, Zach.
Bob was kind of taking on his aggression a little too much in the situation. But I would be the one who got rewarded because he was able to stay cool under pressure. But Bob kind of went off a little bit, so he should probably be the one that would be rewarded in the situation.
Okay. Thomas's group. What would an appropriate reward be for this?
I think I could say just be rewarded.
Okay. Kind of beat me to the punch there. Nyla, when should this reward be given?
I'd probably tell him a little after, like after I talk to Bob. Probably maybe at the end of practice.
Good. Would you guys do this at, like, immediately? Would you do it, like, at the end of practice? Would you do it at the beginning of the next practice? Would you make it a public thing? Or would you just be a one-on-one thing? I had a couple of publics. Who thinks they should do it in public with the whole team? Raise your hand. Got 3. Who thinks you should do it in private? Wow, that's hilarious. The back row all said in public, the front rows all said in private. I think it would depend on the situation. Depends on your kid. If you have a kid that you know is going to react positively to a public positive thing, because you want the whole team to know that this is the behavior you want, but also you got to know about the other guy who was acting poorly. You also don't want to publicly shame him because so and so stayed out of a fight. If this was like during an event, or I forget what wrestling, is it a match? I forget what wrestling is called. But if it was like during a wrestling match, I would be very quick to tell the entire team that's how we want to act during games. So that it just depends on, you got to know your athletes, which I think was the last chapters. When you know your athletes, then you can know what kind of praises they need. Positive discipline is something that I had a couple of people. One's Mr. Kubarak, which some of you may know. Yep, he's currently coaching the NBA guys flag football. I've seen him coach. He was my principal at Lodi. And when he called me in to ask me about something, he made it not a big deal. And after I left, I was like, wait, was he reprimanding me for saying something I shouldn't have? I'm not sure. I was like, that was such a positive chat that I just was like, what just happened? Pastor Jerry, he's now at Lodi, but he hired me at summer camp in Tennessee. Pastor Jerry, that dude is the epitome of positivity. I don't know if I've ever heard a negative thing come out of his mouth. I tried to ask him, how are things at Lodi? And he gave me all the good things that were going on. And then I go and talk to the athletic director, who's very much a pessimist. And I'm like, how's things at Lodi? And he gave me all the bad things that were going on. It was just like, Pastor Jerry would call people in, and I heard other people tell me about this as well, and it was the same kind of concept. they'd walk out and be like, I think he was just punishing me, but I'm not sure because it was so positive. And so I tried my best when I worked for these people to learn their gift of language of when they tried to reprimand someone. So like how this applies to you guys is when you are telling a player that they need to change their behavior, how can you do it so that it uplifts them? It's something just to really think about. It's something I still struggle with because my immediate reaction is to just, hey, cut it out. You know, when my son this morning was trying to pull the power cord of my computer out of the wall outlet because I left it in charging overnight, and the first thing he did when he walked out this morning, because I hadn't put the cover back on, he comes running out and goes, ooh, went straight to it and started to pull on it. I'm like, no! So let's see. Positive discipline is distinguishing between mistakes and behaviors. And they say there's plenty of benefits to positive discipline if you can pull it off. As I say, it takes effort on my part at least. I have to really plan how I'm going to talk to this player when I know they need to change their behavior. And usually the first meeting I have with them, I'm going to try to be as positive as I can. If it doesn't work and I have to have another meeting with them, and these are usually one-on-one before practice, after practice kind of meetings. But if it works, it's awesome. I was like, it's always the best first approach. You know, when you act like this, it makes the team better. Something like that, spinning it very positively rather than going, you can't cuss in practice. It's more like when you say uplifting things during practice, the rest of your team does better. I mean, that's simplifying it. I mean, you can say it better than that. But that's just an example when you're trying to keep one thing to another.
Discipline yourself so that life doesn't have to. Everybody knows that it's painful and hard to wake up at 6 a.m. and get to work. We know it's difficult to make 500 shots every single day at the shooting workout. It's painful and difficult to get in the weight room and tear up your body to build new muscle. It's difficult and painful to study for a test. It's difficult and painful to sacrifice your lesser desires for greater desires. Sacrifice sleep and hanging out with your friends. But here's the secret that champions know. All of that stuff is painful, but it's less painful than when life comes along and tells you no. No, you didn't make the team you wanted to make. No, you're not a starter. No, you don't get the minutes you want. No, you don't get that job or that opportunity, that internship. No, you're not going to get to be in that relationship. Champions know that it's less painful to discipline themselves and sacrifice their lesser desires, to have fun, to be comfortable, to hang out and chill with their friends. Sacrifice those lesser desires for their greater desires. And these greater desires are to make the team, to win the championship, to get the scholarship. Discipline yourself so that life won't have to.
I thought that was a decent example of positive, a different type of discipline. I mean, that's training yourself, that kind of discipline. But that was a pretty good positive spin on you need to work harder. You know, if you had that conversation with a player that was failing grades, I think that conversation would sound more positive than you can't play if you don't get your grades up. So that was what I was trying to get there. It's a different discipline, but same basic concept. That is a terrible slide that does not go there. All right, so I think this is just steps to create or to discipline, I think is what that's saying there. So the first thing you want to work towards is getting the right culture. I know we talk about culture. It's a big buzzword in coaching, and whenever a coach gets fired, I've been watching Nebraska football stuff long enough that they've gone through, oh goodness, they went through a coach every 4 years, and I think Nebraska has the biggest payoff for, because when you fire somebody in coaching, you have to pay their severance package or to pay the rest of their contract. So, I mean, a guy signs a 8-year, $80 million contract, and you fire them after year 4, you still owe them $40 million. Well, Nebraska would do this every 4 years. It was just obnoxious what they were doing. And so they owe like $100 million in back pay to fired coaches right now. But every time they get fired, I listen to the Nebraska radio shows, and they always talk about the culture that team had. One of the coaches would put things on social media. I don't know if he did or he probably had an intern doing it. But he would like buy the whole team tickets to a rap concert that was coming to the city. And the team would all celebrate when he did. So that was some of the culture things he did there. So some better things on that. This is one I really strive for, and I'm working on right now, is take time to learn who they are on and off the field. Yesterday I came into the gym. I took my kid to swim yesterday afternoon because it was a beautiful day. My wife was already in the pool, so when she finished class, I brought the child to swim. When I got out, it was about 3 o'clock, and I looked in the gym, and there were 7 guys, basketball players for prep playing knockout. And so I tried to just kind of see I waved at a couple of them that had been at tryouts already in the morning. Some of them didn't notice me. I just watching how they acted, how they interacted with each other off the field, or off the court in this case. Trying to get to know some of them in practice. That's one good thing about conditioning is there's a little more downtime. When you have them sprint really hard, you got to let them recover. And while you're doing that, you ask them, "How are you doing? What's your favorite class? Are you working outside of school?" Those kinds of things. Just trying to get to know them. A couple little questions like that can make a big difference in the culture of your team. Listen to them, and if they have a viewpoint, and that's usually kind of the next step after you get to know them a little bit. Then they'll start expressing their opinions. Sometimes it might be about another teammate. Sometimes it might be, the principal said this or my teacher said this, and they're just venting to you. Believe in them and let them know that they're important. I used to have meetings with some of my players and tell them what part and what role I wanted them to play when they got in the game. And I run kind of a motion offense in my basketball teams, and I'd be like, when you go in the game, I want you to stand in one of the 4 or the 6 post spots. And when you're on the back side, make sure you're screening for people. When you're on ball side, I want you to post up and be ready to get that give and go pass, which we were scoring a lot on that year, especially against man defenses. Encourage them to see mistakes as an opportunity to learn. And I'll do that as a team as well, not just one-on-one on that one. Like when the team makes a mistake in a practice, I usually let the play finish, stop practice, and be like, what could we have done better? One word I love to use is rewind. That one you got to be a little quicker on. Like they make a pass, make a turn, I'm like, stop, all right, rewind. Everybody go back to where you were with this ball.
How do you feel about when players make mistakes in game about pulling them out?
Depends on the situation. There's times that I would just take them out because they've made too many mistakes in a row, and I'd probably pull them out and be like, "Are you okay?" I would walk to the end of the bench with them and be like, "Sit down," and be like, and in your case, because they always stand on the back of the bench, I'd probably sit at the other end where they're away from their team. It's like, "What's going on with you today? Did you get some sleep last night? Did you have a test?" Just trying to figure out what's going on. And they'd be like, "You need to probably block that out," which with guys is much easier than girls. I have noticed that. Guys can compartmentalize. I noticed the other day, one of the volleyball girls at the home game here, I don't remember what day, whatever game I saw, I think it was Claire, was just off. Hitting them out, hitting into the net. She was back row attacking a couple times straight into the net. I'm like, that is not normal. And my wife actually picked up on it first. She's like, she's just off. So I would have probably sat her out at the beginning of the next set and had a chat. Because just whenever I could get the time to do it, whether it was in between sets, and just try to figure out what's going on because something's not right. It just depends on where I want them to learn because of that. Phil Jackson was an amazing coach, and he was known for when the team was down, they just let the other team go on a 6 or 8 point run. He would let them play through it. And see, can they turn it around? Now, eventually, if they were doing terrible, he'd call a timeout. But he knew he had a veteran team that was going to be able to turn it around. So I guess it just depends on the situation and what I need that athlete to learn. And depends on when in the season as well. If it's early in the season, I'm probably going to let them play through it. Other times, when we're doing like if you're in basketball and you've got a press that you can't break and this guy's turned the ball over 4 times, I'm probably going to pull him out because we can't even get the ball up the floor and give somebody else an opportunity, even though they might turn the ball over too. So there's just a lot that goes on there. It's just knowing your players, knowing the situation. So like taking the first part there, knowing your players is a good way to start there. Respect them enough to involve them in team decision making. I'll ask captains sometimes about defense or about what kind of things they think are working. What defense do you think is working best? Do you think so and so should be a libero? Or maybe should we try do you have another idea of someone who should be the libero? That's just an example. Respect and guide their behaviors. When people misbehave in games or in practice, I will always say something. It may not be immediately. I learned to be a little less on the reaction side when it comes to handling negative behaviors. Other than a quick cut it out, talk to them after why were we misbehaving for whatever reason. So you can hold team meetings. So there's things that can go on there. Team meetings can provide you time with your athletes just to help them get to know you, get to know them. You can also use those times and this could just be a huddle even, before practice, after practice. This is when you can talk to them about character development that they need to do. We stand for these things in our practices. I stole something from Shaka Smart. He's coaching at Marquette right now, but he had like each day of the week, they had a different pillar that they worked on. I remember it was competition Tuesdays. And so I would try to have a lot of competition in my practices on Tuesdays. And I tried to kind of keep those themes in my practices. Team development was another one that I think that was Thursday. What are some reasons you would hold a team meeting? Tell the person next to you. Woo! I got to keep moving. So this one's got a quick little video of what
The
they
first one's called
do for
Open Mic
meetings.
Monday. And our program, we really pride ourselves in transparency. We want our guys to be transparent with each other. We want our coaching staff to be transparent with each other. And we feel like that really makes our culture go the right direction and head the right direction. And so every single Monday, we open it up, whether it's after film or preparing for a game. We just tell our guys, hey, this is an opportunity for you to air out whatever you're feeling. It could be something going on in your personal life or something maybe as a coaching staff we're not doing well. But we have found that's a really, really good way for our players just to air out however they're feeling. And we found that's really worked really well for us.
Yeah, a couple things you want to think about in Open Mic Monday is how.
Right. So he says, being kind as you talk to each other, basically trying not to cut each other down. So moving on. So one of the things you could do in those meetings is come up with your team rules. So you need to have some guidelines for making rules. Some you can make as the coach, some you can have them make. Consequences, same concept. You can sometimes make some of them, like there's some absolutes, like, no drugs, no alcohol, you're going to be kicked off the team. There's some that are cut and dry like that. but then there's going to be other ones that they're going to be like, what punishment would you have for, I think I have this coming up later, is for being late for practice. I've had some coaches that, I'm just going to go into it now because I'm thinking about it. I've had coaches that if you walked in late for practice, the whole team did 10 push-ups for each person that came in late. And this is on a gymnastics team, so we were already on the mats. So I've had teams that made the entire team run for being late. And that way the team was trying to keep the person accountable. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for 6 a.m. practice up here. Like, am I going to have them all run? I really don't. But I know I'm going to have people late, and there probably isn't going to be their fault because most of them are going to have parents driving them. I probably have more rules for missing practice than being late when it's 6 a.m. But when it's like 4 p.m, right after school, and they're late for practice, they're probably late because they're talking to that boyfriend or girlfriend they wish they had and forgot that they needed to come to practice on time. So then coming up with whatever code of conduct you want them to have, I have an example, and then as best you can, enforce the rules consistently. So as I already kind of did this one, here's just an example that's out of our book here. You may have a team rule that athletes can't use profanity. And let's say a person does. First offense, you warn the athlete. Second one, the athlete might spend an hour picking up trash or cleaning the gym. Third one, they must miss a game per incident. So those are just examples. I don't know if I like them a lot, but those are just some examples of getting, some different levels that you might add to that. Here's a rule my acro team had in college, and I kept when I started coaching. The last person on the bus has to pick up trash the next stop. And we did a lot of this. You'd stop someplace, and the whole team, when they'd go stop at a mall usually or something, or an area that had like 5 different places you could eat. And then you could have a choice on where you wanted to eat. Like a food court was an awesome thing because there were so many options in one place. Well, somebody always tried to go do an errand or something, and they'd be the last one on the bus, and we'd all be waiting for them. So, and we didn't go nuts. It was like when so-and-so was late, when it's time to get off on the bus on the next time, you'd be like, here's a trash bag, and they would just walk up and down the aisle like a stewardess and pick up trash as people. I mean, it wasn't like super serious. They didn't have to like stay on the ground and crawl underneath everybody's stuff. Or some of them just stood at the front, but they had to then find a place to put that trash when we got to wherever. Sometimes it was like at a rest stop. So like we weren't crazy about it. And I also, the first stop was always captains would be the ones picking up trash. That was a leadership thing that I had them do. Don't have time for that one. So rules and routines. Every team has different routines that they do. One that I always liked, I just got to go into my old Chicago Bulls.
Even though we're the oldest team in the playoffs, I think that we can turn around really well without notice and make adjustments. Michael was very upbeat and kept saying that this we're fun.
Y'all realize we just come on, man. We're not 22. Let's go out there and play. Let's be ready to roll. I like that. What time is it?
And they did that before every game, and they won 72 games out of 82. And that was one of their pregame rituals, routines. I tried to get my girls' team to do that. Ooh, that did not go well. My guys' team loved it. Girls did not do well. That my ears usually really hurt when they did it too. It's really high pitched. Some examples that you could have: pre-game or pre-practice locker room routines, pre-practice routines for starting practice, your pre-contest, pre-game routines. I would have a certain type of warm-up that I would have them do when it's time for a game. And I'm actually practicing them in the 6:30 in the morning practices that we're doing right now, so that I don't have to teach them later. One that I had was interesting when I went to Southern to interview for their gym master's job. After practice, they had like a guys group that would meet on the mats, and they had a basically men's prayer meeting after practice. I was like, man, that's awesome. And they just kind of went to one corner. Some people kept working on other things after practice, but I was like, that's a post-practice routine that I'm okay with. And they're like, where did you, I asked some of them on the trip that I went on with them, I'm like, where did that come from? They're like, some captains like 5 years ago started that. So they were like, on Thursday after practice, was the last practice of the week, the guys had prayer together, and that's just kind of what it evolved into, was basically a prayer meeting as a group. I'm like, that's fantastic. Practices. This is the one I wanted you guys to talk to each other about. All right, find a different person this time. You might need to move a little bit. Talk to somebody on the different side. What was exciting about practice, and how can you keep that in your practices? This is my version of a standing break that didn't happen.
I didn't care what I did. Maybe if I like did a lot of running and fishing for like all of the right, like I didn't like that. But I don't know, whenever I got
All right. Val, what was the exciting part for your practice? Give me you or Bella, it doesn't matter. During practice or after practice? Okay. That's fantastic. Thomas, what about your group there? What did you and Louise talk about?
We said sometimes we get like Carl Jr. No, it's not way better. You got tickets to go to the Kings.
Well, but you were in Sacramento, weren't you? Yeah. I think you were SAA. I was with Cyrus and some of them when that team was going. The Twins.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I did not have to coach against them, thank goodness. I watched them at this tournament here. Whew. I was so glad we didn't match up. We would have gotten killed. Lillian. Mm-hmm.
Jumping or whatever. So it's kind of cool that we're all like together for the first warm up, and then we just kind of split off into the
Okay, interesting that yours and Bella's are kind of similar in that kind of the warm up part is the highlight of practice. JT. Okay. So I don't have time to unpack this, but remember that when you start coaching, those are the elements that you really liked, and make sure you keep those kind of things in your practices. I'm not as good at having a warm-up where they can all sit there and talk. Now, when I coached middle school girls, I had that part in practice because I noticed that they focused better if they could have that stretching in center court. They would sit in a big circle. There were only 8 of them. So they'd sit in a circle at half court, and they would stretch, and they could yak for 10 minutes. So I was like, I felt like I was wasting. You can go back to where you were. We're not going to go back again. But yeah, oh goodness sakes, I got to keep going because I got to get to the tough stuff. Something and we kind of already talked about this, was catch them doing good things. That's a really good way to keep the positivity on your team. And as a coach, you're always yelling things to improve this, improve that, hustle. I mean, we talked about all the different communication things. One of the things that wasn't in there was positive things. So trying to catch them doing good things, and there's some examples of things that they would do. Some tangible rewards would be like ribbons and shirts, letters for whoever they're being recruited by. Then you can have some just people rewards, praises, smiles, sometimes in front of everybody, sometimes one-on-one. And then we're going to play a game rather than doing drills. I really don't do a lot of games. I do very scripted games. So like if they're doing a scrimmage and somebody gets a steal and goes down and makes a layup, I reward that hustle on defense. We're like, all right, you guys get another possession starting at half court. So I call it a fast break bucket. You guys get a possession, or I'll make them run an out of bounds play or something, whatever we're working on in practice that day. Oh, we don't have time for that one. But make sure you're thinking about, did you in your own athletics actually have any performance or rewards that you got from your coach? Hopefully you have at some point, because that's something that your players will remember, is when they do get those positive rewards. Some for my coach. Now we had this guy that did when I was in homeschool. The 3 things that I remember that were tangible rewards. They had Pepsis that he would give out at practice if you did something good in the game. One was taking a charge. So if you got a charge, so I had a game, I got 3 charges. I wasn't very quick, and I was the center, so, people were driving in on me on a 2-3 zone. I had plenty of chances. So I got 3 Pepsis the next practice. If you made an and one and made the free throw. And then the other one is if you made 5 free throws in a row. So I had one game, and my parents still joke about this. I haven't played homeschool ball in, I'm not going to say how long. And I got an and one, and I made the free throw, and it was the and one free throw, and it was my 5th in a row. And I made the free throw, I backpedaled, and I stopped, and I went, and kept on going. And so my parents, even if I'm watching a basketball game, we were doing it online the other day. We were watching a college game. I think it was Creighton's first game here a couple of days ago. And my dad, when the guy made his and one free throw, my dad goes, and I'm like, that's funny. So we're still joking about that reward that we used to get. This is in your book that had a really interesting code of conduct. And I liked how these were somewhat general. I will be honest, not lie, cheat, or steal. I think there was I will respect the integrity of the game by not gambling. So there were a lot of good general things. I don't know if I would use this exact thing, but this is a really good general one that you could probably modify for your code of conduct that you want your players to do. And I also really like that they had student athlete, and then most of your students are going to be under 18, so they're having them take this home to their parents. They're like, these are the things we stand for. I'd probably have things in there like, I will sit in the front of my class, I will dress nicely when I go to school, things like that would be part of my things there. Discipline, you do have to there is differences between discipline and punishment. Punishment focuses on making the athletes suffer for breaking the rules. So making everybody run when they're late for practice. That would be a punishment. Discipline would be teaching them how to make a better choice next time. So probably that first practice that so-and-so walks in 15 minutes late, I'm going to talk to him after practice and be like, yo, why were you late?
Do you think that discipline is more discipline to make people run for practice if you set up your procedures? You guys can't be late for practice if you do.
I think to a point that works, but it can get excessive, and that's what you don't want. You want to be wasting your time on things that they can't control. And that's why I at least on the being late for a 6 a.m. practice, I don't know why they're late. It could be their parents. It could be their siblings. There could be so many other things that's not just them. That's why when it's like after school and they're late because they didn't want to, or because they were just distracted or they were talking to somebody, I've had them come in late and they usually are having another teacher text me, so-and-so's late because they were talking to me. And I'll get like half a dozen texts sometimes, or they were late for a test. I mean, I don't want to punish the team for things that are outside of their control. But if it's something they can control, then I might punish the entire team. And I already kind of talked about this. Understand why they're misbehaving, and there's a whole list in the book about why they can do that. I got to get to the more things there. Give me a couple more minutes here. I know I'm a little over time. When you are going to punish a player, I learned when I was at Sunnydale, I had a dude that we got into it. He was blocking really well, and he started screaming at me. And I was nowhere near the play. And he was so mad at me. And I wasn't too happy with him either because he was shoving, and he shouldn't have been, but the ref didn't see it. But they were high schoolers, so who cares? And we got out of that game, and the head dean called me. I was the assistant dean, so I was the adult at the time, and this senior. And we got in there. I'm like, sorry, I went a little bit overboard. And the guy was like, yeah, you shouldn't have. And the dean's like, let's talk about this tomorrow because all parties have not calmed down. And I'm like, I'm going to remember that. So when you have to yell at somebody and do some sort of corrective discipline, I highly recommend sleep on it, talk to them in practice the next day, rather than dealing with it immediately. And then my last thing we got to talk about is the serious things. Sometimes athletes are going to break some really heavy rules that could be illegal, drugs, alcohol. Don't cover up a player that's doing something they shouldn't have, especially if it's a legality of some sort. You can get in more trouble than them. I mean, I'm throwing this is way overboard, but let's say a player killed someone in a car accident, and they drove away, and they came and told you. That's one of those things you got, I can't cover this up. I will help you as much as I can, but you've got to go make the right decision. I will go with you to turn yourself in. Something like that. Hopefully, God forbid, you never have to do that. But those are those kind of coaching decisions you need to have made before they happen. So just know that if it's something illegal, you need to know beforehand that you're going to make the right decision and not cover it up. Anything else? Oh yeah, every level kids are watching you. Act properly, because you've seen coaches that go nuts and then their players go nuts. So don't be that coach, because you have to be disciplined too. I'm done.